The anime kicks off by showing us Fenrir, an S-level monster that could wipe out a whole city on its own. After taking non-stop damage, the village it was attacking decided to blow almost all their savings to hire the flaming dragon fang to take it down. That's when we meet the main guy, Kurt Rohans, who, because he's kind of clumsy, ends up crossing paths with Fenrir. The three adventurers from the group team up and beat the monster pretty easily. The squad is made up of Bandana, the fastest scout ever, and seriously, what kind of name is that? Her parents must have hated her, Malerfus, the mage, and Gold Nova, the flame warrior. After pulling off that feat, they all became heroes. Even though Kurt's pretty weak, he's still part of the team, doing small tasks while tagging along with them to save the world. Later, when they're chillin' at an inn, Bandana mentions it's gonna be the last time he'll get to eat their food. Kurt's like, huh? What do you mean by that? Gold Nova drops the bomb on him, saying, bro, you're too slow, and tells him he's fired. They decided it because he wasn't really contributing anything. Then Malerfus explains that in this world, a party can only have 4 people max. So if they want to get stronger, they'll need a high-level mage. No exceptions. Kurt begs Gold Nova to reconsider, but instead of answering, Nova just straight up kicks him away. The three just look at him with pity. Kurt then heads to the city, and the first place he hits up is the job agency. As soon as he walks in, he's greeted by a receptionist, who asks if he's looking for a job or trying to hire someone. Kurt says he's there for a job, so she tells him he needs to do an interview and a skills test first. When they sit down, Kurt says his name, says he's 15, and that he's from Hast, a tiny village way up in the Shin Mountains. Kursel, the receptionist, is surprised, and she didn't even know a village existed there. But she just moves on and asks about his work experience. Kurt tells her he used to do small tasks for the hero group Flaming Dragonfang. Kursel's super surprised since those guys just hit SS rank recently. Even though Kurt admits he got fired, she tells him that kind of experience is still going to help his application. So hey, not all bad. After the interview, Kursel says it's time for the skills test, and maybe he'll discover some hidden skill he didn't even know about. The skill levels go from G, pretty much no talent, up to SSS, which is like Black Pistol level, the big leagues. When they finish the test, she shows him the results. G rank in everything. Dude's got no talent whatsoever for combat. Kurt's even more bummed than before, but Kursel tells him there's still specialized jobs left to check, like blacksmithing and alchemy. Problem is, the guy in charge of that part isn't available for another week. Kurt tells her he doesn't have that kind of money to wait around, so she asks him to lift a sandbag nearby. He grabs it, and weirdly, it feels like the bag is draining some of his magic. Even lifting it with all his strength is crazy hard. After he's done, she tells him that with that level of physical endurance, he could probably work construction. They end up sending him off to a border city in Taikone, where they're hiring people to repair the castle walls. She asks if he's down for it, and Kurt accepts. Later, he meets the construction foreman who, honestly, doesn't think much of Kurt's scrawny build, but he explains all Kurt's gotta do is make the cement they'll use to fix the wall. Kurt finds that weird, because normally you have to infuse the cement with magic to make it stronger. He tries to ask about it, but the boss just cuts him off and says he'll check on him in 3 hours. Plus, he'll be paid based on how well he does. Assuming it's just common knowledge to magic up the cement, Kurt gets to work. 3 hours later, the boss comes back, and he's straight up stunned. A massive chunk of the wall is completely rebuilt. Kurt even apologizes for using up all the cement. The boss realizes Kurt rebuilt like a third of the giant west wall in just 3 hours. He almost calls it impossible, but then just accepts it, pays Kurt a sack of coins, and tells him to come back tomorrow. Days pass, and the workers can't stop staring at the fully repaired wall, stretching from end to end. But then the boss tells Kurt he can't come back anymore. Turns out, the wall project was supposed to create jobs and help fight poverty. But if Kurt keeps working, nobody else will have anything to do because he's just too damn fast. The boss figures Kurt must be SS or SSS level and suggests he head to the capital to work instead. After paying him, he basically kicks him out nicely. Kurt thinks the boss is just sugarcoating it to get rid of him. Later, Kurt heads back to the job agency to tell Kursel what happened. But before they can really talk, they hear a commotion at the reception desk. Turns out an adventurer's causing a fuss, looking for miners. Problem is, it's for a mountain that doesn't even show any potential, and she's only paying if they actually find something. No upfront money. While they're arguing, Kurt steps up and offers to take the job. The girl immediately mocks him for looking weak. Anclank, meaning skinny, frail, no muscle at all. Still, the receptionists tell her finding a dwarf miner for a job like this would be impossible. So Kurt's basically her best shot. She thinks about it, and since if she doesn't start paying taxes, her mountain's gonna get seized, she agrees. She introduces herself as Ulicia. When Kurt and Ulicia leave, Kursel thinks Kurt's way too sweet and adorable, like he'd probably do great working in the red light district, and starts daydreaming about it. Her coworker snaps her back to reality by handing over Kurt's paycheck for the wall job. When Kursel looks at it, she freaks out. Dude earned 200 gold coins. While she's losing it, she trips over the sandbags. Her coworker tells her those aren't regular sandbags. They're magical test bags. The heavier they feel, the more magic you have. Thing is, they don't use them often because it only really reacts to real magic users. Kursel lifts one up easily and suddenly remembers how Kurt struggled just to lift one a tiny bit. It makes her wonder, who is this kid really? Meanwhile, Kurt and Ulicia keep moving until they reach a tent. Kurt's like, yo, I can't sleep in the same tent as a pretty girl like you. Ulicia freaks out thinking he's joking, but when he confirms he's serious, she gets super flustered. No one's ever said anything like that to her before, and she's been an adventurer since she was 10. She gives him some food she made herself. When Kurt realizes she cooked it, she gets all happy, saying it's been forever since someone made food for her. That night, while they're sleeping, Kurt wakes up and checks if she's asleep, only to realize she's barely wearing anything. Trying his best not to react, he bolts out of the tent to sleep outside. Turns out Ulicia wasn't asleep. She was testing him to see if he'd try anything shady. But after seeing he's a good, sweet kid, she decides it'll be fun to tease him. Next morning, Ulicia steps out of the tent and sees Kurt sleeping outside with his clothes fixed up and a new button sewn on. When he wakes up, she asks if he did that, and when he says yes, she's impressed, but tries to change the subject before she catches feelings. She tells him they gotta earn 10 gold coins this week, and that they're gonna start digging, doesn't matter where. Kurt's confused and tells her if they just dig blindly, they probably won't find anything. Instead, he suggests looking for something specific. When they get to the site, he cracks open a rock and shows her the minerals inside. He says these are crystals, and with that size, they might fetch about 3 gold coins. Ulicia is completely shocked. Kurt checks all the rocks in the area and ends up with a mountain of crystals. Then he explains that the crystals are too small to sell for much, so he's going to turn them into magic crystals instead. Ulicia remembers that there are less than 10 mages in the whole kingdom who can even make magic crystals, and even the smallest ones take at least an hour to craft. But Kurt just casually makes one in seconds. She's completely blown away. Kurt explains he doesn't have a lot of magic, so he couldn't maintain the spell for long anyway. He's honestly amazed real mages can keep it going for an hour straight. Ulicia feels like they're not even talking about the same thing anymore. After finishing up, Kurt tells her he's staying behind because he's got something to do. Ulicia says she'll come back tomorrow after selling the crystals. As she's leaving, she's thinking to herself, why the hell is this guy so damn adorable? Later, Ulicia arrives at the guild to report the magic crystals. The knight handling the paperwork is suspicious, surprised they were made locally and not imported. He starts asking questions she doesn't want to answer, so she flashes her Royal Adventurer Guild badge and gets everything processed easily. After that, she heads to the capital using a teleportation stone, and it's explained that she no longer works for the royal family. Once she gets there, she visits a shop where she bumps into an old acquaintance, Mimiko. She tries to sell one of the magic crystals she brought. Mimiko examines it and notices that its light is really faint, meaning it probably isn't worth much, maybe around 10 silver coins. But to be sure, she takes it to another room to check it properly. A few minutes later, she comes back and says she'll buy it for 10 gold coins, because the amount of magic inside is actually 10 times more than usual. The crystal only looks weak because it was designed to prevent the magic from leaking out. She also points out that there are 49 more crystals just like it, so Mimiko hands her a huge bag with 500 gold coins. Before finalizing the deal, though, Mimiko wants to tell her 2 important things. First, she warns her not to sell these crystals anywhere else, because most stores wouldn't know their true value, and she doesn't want crystals of this level floating around carelessly. Second, she wants to know who made them, because if someone can craft crystals this powerful, the kingdom needs to protect them like an endangered species. Ulicia refuses to reveal the creator without his permission, but Mimiko orders her to tell the royal court sorcerers with a rank equal to an honorary countess. Ulicia explains again that she's no longer a royal adventurer, but Mimiko calls her out, saying she still pretends to be one sometimes to enjoy the perks. Even though Ulicia holds her ground, Mimiko eventually lets it slide, but asks her, as a friend, to make sure nobody else takes him away, and to tell him that they're willing to make him the director of the Royal Institute of Magic, a baron, and even offer him the honorary title of Count with the king's approval. After leaving the shop, Ulicia is totally confused, because none of this makes sense to her. Next, she heads to the employment agency and asks Kursel about him. Since it's confidential, she has to flash her royal family emblem again. Thanks to that, she finds out he used to be part of a heroes group, scored G rank and everything, and although he got fired from the wall repair job, they still paid him 200 gold coins. Kursel adds that it's kind of sad, because he repaired the northern and western castle walls completely by himself. After hearing all that, Ulisha gives him a bag with 499 gold coins, asking Kursel to deposit it into C's account. Finally, she orders him under the Royal Adventure Authority to keep everything about him a secret. The next day, she returns to the mountains where she last saw Court, and she's shocked to see a house has been built there. After calming down, she asks what he thinks about building a house in one night. Court just shrugs, saying it's normal in his hometown. Meanwhile, the Dragonfang team is in trouble during a fight because Court's not there to back them up. They blame the new guy who joined the group. Golva acts selfish as always, and Bandana starts thinking that the team is totally falling apart. They can't even work together properly anymore. Back to Ulisha, she tells Court about the offer to become the director of the Magic Institute and be treated like a noble. Court's suspicious, asking why they're offering him something so crazy. Ulisha explains that the person who appraised the magic stones works as a court sorceress for fun, which makes Court wonder if she's tricking him. When it's time to make a decision, Court thanks them but ends up rejecting the offer. He believes someone like him shouldn't be put in a position where he leads others. That's the main reason he says no, especially after what happened with his last group. Ulisha tells him his job for now is working with her, because selling the crystals wasn't enough to pay taxes. Ulisha admits she only kept 1 gold coin as commission and deposited the rest in his account, because she didn't create the crystals herself. Court says she didn't have to worry about him, but she insists it was the right thing to do, quietly adding that she couldn't live with the guilt if she had kept it all. Since he doesn't hear that last part, she quickly changes the topic, showing her determination to keep searching for minerals. Court tells her that he found a promising vein yesterday. She thanks him, but also asks if he's getting enough sleep. He says he got about 6 hours, which leaves her super confused because of all the work he's been doing. She starts doing the math on how many hours he must have spent building the house and doing everything else. Seeing this, Court feels bad and thinks he should have slept even less to avoid bothering her, just like in his old group, where he used to sleep only 4 hours to always be the first one awake. Those jerks totally overworked my poor boy. To keep respecting that, he says he'll make up for sleeping by working even more, which confuses her even more. Later, he takes her to the place he wanted to show her and suggests they work separately. He explains that just by looking at the land's formation, he believes there's a deposit underneath, probably no deeper than 50 meters, although she finds that incredibly hard to believe. After Court leaves, she starts digging and luckily finds something that looks like a giant topaz. She thinks about asking him to turn it into a magic crystal to make a ton of money, but quickly drops the idea. She doesn't want to take advantage of someone so kind. She then goes to check on Court's progress, and from what she can see, it looks like he's already built an entire mine. When she gets closer, she confirms it and tries not to look surprised, even though she's totally overwhelmed by how huge it is. Inside, Court apologizes, saying he only found worthless stones and tiny bits of the mineral they were looking for. When Ulicia peeks at the massive mountain of worthless minerals, she overhears Court mention that one of them is mithril, which totally shocks her. Thor adds that in his hometown, there was so much mithril they used to throw it away like trash. She's even more shocked because mithril is more valuable than gold and platinum. She asks Court what mineral he was actually looking for, and he casually says orichalcum. She's speechless because it makes no sense to find something like that here. But Court just says that if you dig about 7 kilometers deep, you always find it. She struggles to process everything, so she asks if he really dug 7 kilometers deep in just 8 hours, and then came back up. He casually says yeah, and also mentions he had to fill the hole back up because it was dangerous. Ulicia does her best to stay calm, but then she sees a light from a distance and realizes he created a tunnel that goes straight through the whole mountain. Again, she forces herself to stay calm and warns him not to cover it up no matter what. They finish extracting the minerals within 2 days and return to Samaela City. Since the tunnel connects Samaela and another city ruled by Lord Taone, Ulicia decides to let the Traveling Merchants Guild use it in exchange for maintenance fees, which will cover their taxes. Later that day, Bandana approaches Court to say hi and explains that she's no longer part of Dragon Fang, either because of some drama that happened. We then see an incident caused by Gold Nova. He left a restaurant without paying, while causing a huge scene. Outside, he demanded the smoked meat that Court had made, but Bandana told him there was none left, so he ordered her to bring Court back, even if she had to rough him up a bit. Bandana stayed calm, but used her speed to snatch a teleportation crystal from him and left him behind. She noticed that the guards were still looking for Gold Nova and figured he'd get arrested sooner or later. She didn't tell Court about all this, though. She just said she got kicked out of the group too, so he wouldn't get dragged into it. Court worries he won't be able to return to the group, so Bandana asks why he's even so interested in going back. He says he owes Gold Nova a lot and always admired him. Bandana quietly admits to herself that Gold Nova was actually good at hiding Court's talents from the world. Switching topics, she guesses he's job hunting since they're standing in front of the employment agency. She then recommends a job at a workshop owned by someone she knows. She tells him that there are only 15 licensed ateliers in the whole country, and one of those geniuses is currently in trouble. She believes Court would be a huge help. Court isn't super confident, but Bandana encourages him and hands him a recommendation letter. As she walks away, she mutters to herself that being the disciple of a great sage isn't going to be easy. Here, it's explained that ateliers are workshops where they make and sell medicines, magic swords, and magical artifacts. Licensed master artisans, known as ateliers, are considered to be on the same level as viscounts. When Court reaches the place, he's surprised because it just looks like a regular house. But the sign says Atelier Ophelia, so he knows he's in the right spot. He knocks, and a small elf girl named Michelle Lakota opens the door. She's the assistant at the atelier. Court tells her he's here to help and shows Bandana's letter. Michelle lets him in, but almost immediately, Court notices a terrible smell in the air. She apologizes and explains that his first job will be cleaning up a room she hasn't had time to clean in 3 weeks. Realizing he's basically been hired for chores, Court thinks it makes way more sense now. He didn't expect to be doing any real workshop work yet anyway. He gets to work and in no time leaves the place sparkling clean. Since he doesn't know what else to do, he goes looking for Michelle. When he walks through another door, he suddenly sees a half-dressed girl. After a few awkward seconds, he introduces himself, explaining he just started working here today. Once the girl understands the situation, she tells him the atelier owner is downstairs. Court's nerves start to settle until he notices something weird on the girl's stomach. She has a curse mark. With her permission, he examines it and finds out the curse has advanced so much that she doesn't even feel pain anymore. Her organs must already be affected, meaning soon she won't even want to eat. At that moment, her stomach growls loudly. So Court offers to make her a light meal to eat. Once he gets to the kitchen, he starts thinking about how it's the first time he's ever touched a naked girl, and that distracts him so much he clumsily trips. Meanwhile, Yulisha asks Mimiko how much she'll pay for everything she just handed over. Mimiko answers it would be around 80,000 gold coins. Still not able to believe that the mithril and orichalcum were real. Yulisha then asks what would happen if news about that boy spread, and Mimiko says if he's lucky, he'll just get kidnapped, but it's more likely he'll get killed. She also wonders how such an incredible kid managed to go unnoticed. Yulisha tells her that he was kicked out of the Flaming Dragon Fang party, which surprises Mimiko because she heard their leader has an arrest warrant out. Setting that aside, she directly asks Yulisha what she plans to do with him. Yulisha says she's thinking about getting him appointed as a Tellier Mir, and that it'd be better to rein him in before he starts attracting too much attention. She wants to hire him as a bodyguard, but she knows she has to figure out a way to convince him, especially since he not only is aware of his skills, but also underestimates himself. Back to Court. While he's in the kitchen, Lady Ophelia, the Atelier Meister, shows up. He apologizes for using the kitchen without permission, saying he decided to make rice soup for the girl in the back room. Ophelia approaches him and asks him to promise he won't tell anyone he saw that girl, which he agrees to without a problem. After that, she tells him that's it for today, and he should come back tomorrow for his payment. After he leaves, Ophelia criticizes herself for letting the girl see a total stranger. Even if it was to try to lift the curse, she admits she was too careless. Shortly after, she brings food to the girl's room and helps her properly dress herself, which she sees as normal, since there were always people taking care of her. Before handing over the food, she says she'll taste it first to check for poison, but the girl says it's not necessary because he cooked it, and her instincts tell her he's a good person. She also explains that since she never found out who cursed her, she's spent her whole life not trusting anyone. That's why today, at least for once, she wants to trust someone. Ophelia agrees to eat without testing it, but the moment she takes the first spoonful, her body reacts and she suddenly collapses to the ground. Ophelia freaks out and even gets mad at Court for what just happened. That's when the girl slowly gets up and assures her that she's okay, And not only that, it seems like she's completely cured. Ophelia is stunned when she sees the curse mark is gone and can't understand how it happened. Scene change. They show the mage who cursed her, apologizing to his superior because he didn't expect the curse to be broken. His boss, however, says they can't waste any more time. The target must be killed as soon as possible. That night, Ophelia visits Mimiko's shop. Mimiko, accompanied by Elisha, assures Ophelia she can be trusted for what she's about to say. Once that's clear, Ophelia introduces herself to Elisha and allows the girl beside her to reveal her true identity. The moment she does, Mimiko and Elisha immediately kneel on one knee out of respect because the girl is Lady Liselot, the third princess of the kingdom. Ophelia explains to Mimiko that the rumors weren't completely accurate. Liselot wasn't sick. She was cursed because someone wants her dead. Liselot is the only daughter of His Majesty and Princess Francois, who came from the Gurumaku Empire, their eastern neighbors, to marry into the royal family, and her existence symbolizes the peace between both nations. Now that the war with the northern kingdom has ended, someone is trying to start a new conflict. That's why they're asking for help, to find out who cursed her. Mimiko says she's impressed they managed to break such a strong curse. Liselotte says it's all thanks to a young man named Court. Hearing that name, Elisha and Mimiko are visibly shocked, the last name they expected to hear in this conversation. After Ophelia explains what happened, they all understand that when the princess ate the soup Court made, it somehow broke the powerful curse on her. Naturally, Elisha feels overwhelmed, not understanding what Court is even doing anymore, especially since they've only been apart for half a day. They then move on to talk about the bigger issue, finding the culprit behind the assassination attempt. The suspect must be someone with connections, knowledge of curses, and the ability to tamper with palace talismans. Mimiko lists 3 prime suspects: Sanova Riscot, the first general of the Royal Expeditionary Forces; Tristan Mayolf, Bishop of the Church of Poland; Isidora Arkmama, the king's third queen, and apparently, someone whose name definitely doesn't suit her. Ophelia points out that Tristan could have used one of his fanatics to mess with Alice's room talisman. She adds that Lady Isidora, the stepmother, has free access to the palace and could have tampered with it herself. But about Sanova, Ophelia thinks it's unlikely. Mimiko explains that's not true. Sanova has ties to the Thieves Guild, meaning he could easily have spies inside the palace. Given all that, Ophelia suggests it's going to be hard to pin down the culprit right now. So she proposes a trap. Liselotte just turned 15, which means she's legally an adult now, and tradition says she should leave the palace for a year to train. Given the dangerous timing, the plan is to create a fake atelier with a fake Meister and have her train there. That way, the culprit will try to dig up information about this Meister, and because he's fake, they won't find anything. The more they dig, the easier it'll be to catch them. But Ophelia points out they'll need some kind of achievement to make the fake Meister believable. Elisha says she's got just the thing and shows a magic crystal to Ophelia. The moment Ophelia examines it, she asks where she got such a high-quality crystal. Elisha casually answers that Court made it. Ophelia is left in shock hearing that, while Liselotte gets super excited to hear about another one of Court's achievements. Meanwhile, Court arrives at Ophelia's atelier only to find it closed. A few seconds later, Michel shows up and greets him. He asks if something happened, and Michel explains that after he left yesterday, their master suddenly went out, so there's nothing she can help with today. Feeling a bit down, Court starts heading toward the exit, thinking he might have done something wrong again. Suddenly, his stomach growls, so he decides to grab something to eat. Right then, he overhears some adventurers arguing about something. They're stressing out about an urgent delivery they need to make today, but their transporter is sick. One of them, a girl, doesn't want to give up on the job, but the guy she's with thinks it's hopeless. Understanding their situation, Court steps up and offers to be their transporter, saying that while he's terrible at fighting, he's really good at carrying stuff. The girl looks down on him, thinking he's just a kid, but her older brother apologizes for her rudeness. He explains that today's job involves hunting an iron golem, and those things weigh over 200 kilograms, so they need someone special to lift it. Even after their warnings, Court says 200 kilograms is nothing, and offers to prove it by lifting them both. Without hesitating, he easily lifts one of them, fully armored, with one arm. They tell him the armor adds up to 150 kilograms, but even then, Court easily lifts the second one with his other arm. Seeing that, the adventurers immediately accept him. On the way, the armored guy introduces himself as Kans, a heavy armored warrior. The other is Danzo, a samurai and their group leader. And lastly, Sina, the scout. Together, they're known as the Sakura group. They all shake hands, and Kans explains that their usual transporter, Vibinoke, is sick with the flu and will be out for a week. Court formally introduces himself, and his politeness makes them all laugh warmly. Seeing how kind they are, Court feels determined to do his best. Before entering the cave they're exploring, Court suddenly gets attacked by a slime. Seeing it's a weak monster, Sina lets her guard down and tells him to just stab its core. But Court keeps missing and even accidentally stabs himself in the leg. Sina quickly takes his dagger and finishes the slime for him, realizing he really wasn't kidding when he said he's bad at fighting. Cons and Danzo tell him not to worry, since it's their job to fight. Court doesn't get why no one's mad at him for messing up. It's such a different experience compared to being in the flaming dragon fang. Feeling overwhelmed, he tears up a bit. Sina, worried, assures him everything's fine. After that, they move deeper into the cave. Sina starts spreading glowing moss to light the way. Soon after, Court notices something odd. Sina identifies it as fresh goblin poop, meaning goblins are probably nearby. Cons tells Court not to worry. They can handle 1 or 2 goblins easily, but if they run into a full pack, they should run. A little further ahead, they spot some ruins. In one hallway, Court spots something unusual on the wall. Right after, he alerts them to a goblin, and Sina and Danzo quickly take it down. They wonder if it called for backup, and sure enough, they start hearing more goblin screams nearby, way more than expected. It's a big problem. No one told them there was a huge goblin colony here, and they're even coming from the entrance. Danzo tells everyone to get ready, but Sina doesn't think they can handle that many. Then Court mentions that he found a hidden door earlier. Cans signals his brother and asks Court to find the exit. Once they enter the hidden passage, Sina suddenly slams the door shut behind them. Court is confused because Cans and Danzo are still outside, but Sina says she knows. Right after, Kay speaks to her from the other side to explain that it's impossible to find an exit and escape from so many goblins at once. That's why he wants them to go ahead. Court suggests staying behind to fight, but Sina snaps at him, pointing out that he couldn't even beat a slime, which would make him a burden to her brother and Danzo. Seeing the frustration on her face, Court realizes that deep down, she wants to stay and fight to the very end, more than he does. But they just can't. Cans then asks him to take care of Sina, ending the conversation. Danzo says he doesn't regret this choice, and Cans adds that, as her brother, there's no greater honor than dying to protect Sina. The one thing they both agree on is that they would never regret fighting to ensure their comrades survive. Kor is shocked to hear this, because they see him as a comrade too. Even if it hurts, knowing he can't do anything to help, Sina eventually calms down and tells him that the two of them will survive. But when she throws some glowing moss at that dark salt to light up the area, she freezes in fear at what she sees, a massive iron golem dragon. Meanwhile, Yulisha brings Lise to the inn, where Court is staying. But before she lets her see him, she reminds Lise not to tell him she's a princess. Lise agrees without a problem, and even thinks it's nice that Court only sees her as a regular girl. When they reach Court's room, he's nowhere to be found. Suddenly, Bandana shows up in the hallway and tells them Court went with a party of adventurers called Sakura to a cave located northeast of here. Yulisha rushes outside to see who it is, but Bandana vanishes without a trace. Thinking it over, Yulisha tells Lise it might be a trap. She also remembers that a training exercise took place in that cave recently, meaning surviving goblins might be hiding there. She decides to go after Court herself and tells Lise to stay behind. But before she can even finish, Lise insists she's coming too. She criticizes her escort for leaving her behind and claims that, as a royal, she can use magic to defend herself, so she won't be a burden. Yulisha can't argue with that logic and agrees to bring her along, but makes her promise to stay close. They soon arrive at the cave, noticing freshly placed glowing moss inside. Lise points out some footprints she says belong to Court and can even tell which way he went. Yulisha, a bit weirded out, tries to ask how she recognized that just from footprints. It's kind of creepy, but Lise doesn't answer. As they continue, it gets harder to see the tracks, so Lise casts a spell to heighten her senses. Yulisha thinks it's a good idea, since she'll be able to hear them better. But then she sees Lise sniffing the hallway like an animal and is left speechless, wondering how she can recognize his scent so clearly. Maybe she sniffed him up close? That makes her start thinking maybe they've hugged before. Lise suddenly warns her someone's fighting up ahead. Yulisha tells her to stay put and powers herself up with magic before charging in. Cans and Danzo are in the middle of fighting goblins when Yulisha joins in. Meanwhile, Sina is convinced they're all going to die. Facing those golem dragons, she regrets taking this mission and apologizes to Court for dragging him into this. She explains that iron golem dragons always guard against intruders and will attack anyone who tries to pass. Court stays calm and says they'll get out of here. But first, he wants to take care of these golems. She tries to stop him, but he rushes forward, and one of the dragons attacks. However, in an instant, he slips past them and hits their weak points with his dagger, breaking them into pieces. He repeats this over and over, slicing them up with incredible speed, not even getting hit once. Sina watches in shock, asking how this is even possible. He just smiles and says he's used to mining minerals from creatures like these, but she's still frozen in disbelief. Right then, Yulisha kicks the door open and, seeing the scene, asks Sina what happened. Sina tells her that Court tore the golems apart with just a dagger and claims he was just mining minerals. Court then walks over to say hi cheerfully, but quickly asks her to help the others, who are still in danger. Yulisha says they're already safe, and he breathes a huge sigh of relief. At that moment, he recalls a legend about a man with G-level combat skills but S-level grass-cutting skills, who supposedly killed a thorn dragon with a sickle. He starts wondering if that kind of thing might actually be possible. Then Liz arrives, fangirling hard over Court's performance and killing the vibe a bit. Later, Cancel tells Yulisha that the mission they took was suggested by another party member who didn't mention the goblins might be hiding in that cave. Both of them are grateful for being saved, but Yulisha tells them not to worry and has something important to share. She tells Court that she's opening a new atelier and wants him to be the lead adventurer. She knows he did amazing work at Lady Ophelia's shop and thinks he's the perfect fit. He tries to say he's already part of this group, but the others encourage him to accept, since it's such a great opportunity. After that, Yulisha tells Cons and Danzo the atelier still needs staff, so she offers them jobs as adventurers. They get excited by the opportunity, and when Court tries to carry away a dragon golem's tail, Yulisha suggests he retake the aptitude test when they get back to the city, just to better understand his own abilities. He remembers wanting to take it when the technician returned, so he agrees. Later that day, he finally meets Mimiko, a royal court mage, who will evaluate his skills. That night, while the Sakura party and Lise celebrate with Court, Mimiko speaks privately with Yulisha about his test results. Apparently, while he was told he's level B in cleaning, cooking, and mining, and C in everything else, the truth is that the agency only ranks from level G to SS. So getting results higher than that means he's actually SSS level in every skill they tested. On top of that, his latent magic power far exceeds Mimiko's own. Yulisha thinks he's way too talented to be wasted on a fake atelier. Mimiko is glad Yulisha was the one to evaluate him. He doesn't even want to imagine what would happen if this info got out. Just then, they both turn to look at Kishel, who's awkwardly pretending she didn't hear anything. To make sure it sinks in, Mimiko and Yulisha repeat what they said, and she freaks out even more. Now, Court and the rest are heading by carriage to a distant border city, the same one where he repaired the walls a few days ago. On the way, he gets excited about the speed of the carriage. Yulisha tells him they got it through Atelier Mir's authority. The border city doesn't have teleportation stones, and although it's remote, it used to be a military base near the Demon Lands. They haven't picked a new viceroy yet, but it's still an important city funded by the Alliance. The Sakura party will now serve as private adventurers for the new atelier there. Kans doesn't think he's worthy of the honor, but Yulisha assures him they chose them based on their abilities, not favoritism. While Danzo and Kei take the job positively, Sina has her doubts. She thinks this isn't goodwill. They're being brought in to be silenced. And if it comes to that, she swears this time she'll be the one to protect her brother and Danzo. As they finally reach the city, Court looks down when he sees the walls. It's where he worked before, only to be kicked out after 3 days. Once at the designated site, Yulisha shows them the new atelier, which turns out to be an empty lot. The others are confused, unsure of what they're supposed to do. She tells them to wait at the inn while Court builds the atelier. Everyone's stunned, but Court apologizes, saying while he could build a cabin in a day, an atelier would take at least 3. Cons and Danzo find that totally reasonable. Yulisha, already used to his miracles, agrees. Then Court hands over a material list, including amethysts, sapphires, and griffin feathers. Yulisha agrees to that too, but while he's distracted talking with Lise, she notices that Sina looks very uncomfortable with everything going on. So she asks everyone to head to the inn to give Court space to work. Before she leaves, she firmly reminds Court to eat and rest properly. At the inn, Yulisha gathers them all in a private room. She has something to discuss. CA is the first to speak, asking if she's going to talk about the cave. Without waiting, she tells her brother and Danzo that it was Court who defeated the iron golem dragons using nothing but a dagger, claiming he was just mining minerals. Hearing this, Yulisha and Lise both ask, "Who the hell is Court? And who are you two?" Yulisha starts by explaining that she used to be an adventurer working for the royal family. family. Then Lise introduces herself properly as Liselotta Yomuros and draws her dagger bearing the royal crest, revealing she's the kingdom's third princess. Kay stands up out of reflex, while the others are stunned. Lys tells them to relax. Due to certain circumstances, she has to keep her identity a secret and wants to continue being treated like just Lys. CA guesses that Court must be royalty too, but Elisha says no. They actually don't know who he really is. What they do know is that all his combat skills are level G, but he has SSS level and everything else. He doesn't even know that himself. In fact, they lied to him about his results and told him he's just B or C. Also, the new Atelier Mir in the city will actually belong to Court, but that's a secret too. CA complains that they're deceiving him, saying the least they could do is tell him the truth. Elisha explains that even if they did, he probably wouldn't believe them. More importantly, someone without scruples might try to take advantage of Court's talent once it becomes public. CA accuses them both of using him and asks them to just drop the subject because it's too much. Her brother tries to calm her down while Danzo tells Elisha to keep talking. Lys explains that Court broke the curse on her with some rice soup he made, and that's because someone's trying to kill her. That's why they chose this border town as the new location for the atelier, to expose whoever's behind it and track down the mastermind. But Court, even without knowing who she really was, saved her without asking for anything in return after learning she was cursed. Yisha says he's just too innocent and always puts others first. In short, he's a really good guy, and that's why she wants to protect him. Lys asks the same, not as a princess, but as Court's friend and future wife. She then asks if they can keep the secret and join forces to protect him. After a short silence, Danzo says, a knight can't say no to royalty, but they're adventurers, so they're not obligated. Even so, they're his comrades and risk their lives with Court, and they're his friends too. Kay agrees with a very positive tone. Sina's still unsure though, saying they've only known him for a few days and don't know much about him. Elisha says she understands, but Sina questions that hard. So Elisha explains that she only met Court 6 days ago herself, which suddenly calms Sina down. She then says she needs a moment to think and walks out without another word. As she walks, she thinks none of it makes sense and that Court deserves to know the truth. When she finds him in the vacant lot, she's shocked at the progress he's made in such a short time. Court comes over to say hi, and she asks if he really dug all that out. He confirms it and says he has a level B in mining, but she knows that someone at that level shouldn't be able to do something like this. She tells him he's amazing, but he says seriously that back in his village, it was normal to build dozens of houses a day, so he actually feels kind of slow. Sina obviously thinks that's far from normal and asks if he minds being forced to do this kind of work. Court clarifies that no one's forcing him, and he's happy to do it. His last group used to call him useless and even kicked him out, so now he feels great showing how useful he can be. Seeing him so happy, Sina really gets what Elisha said and cheers up, now fully feeling like they're friends. Later, we see Danzo meeting with an informant. She tells him about Vivinoki, the other group member who got sick. Turns out his alias is Thousand Faces, and he takes shady jobs, infiltrates adventurer parties, and has already screwed over several teams. So it's pretty clear he was targeting Sakura. Also, a rival group held a grudge against them for getting more quests and sent Vivinoki their way. Danzo thanks her and pays her, ending the conversation. That same night, he finds Vivinoki at a bar, threatening their group and the princess after finding out they're connected. When Vivinoki spots him, he immediately tries to run. As he sprints through the alley, he suddenly trips over a thin wire set up by the informant, who's actually Bandana. When Danzo catches him, he draws his katana and places it near his neck. He tells him he doesn't consider him a teammate at all, and instead of killing him, he warns that if he ever comes near his friends again, he won't hesitate to do it. Vivinoki faints from the shock. As Danzo leaves, Bandana is disappointed. She wanted him to finish him off before he became a problem. Just before she takes matters into her own hands, a group of hooded people shows up out of nowhere and quickly take Vivinoki away. She recognizes them as Phantom, the intel unit working for Mimiko. Then, she drops off a body with a note containing info about Marlefus. After reading it, she says it's a shame, but her master told her not to mess with that woman. So she decides to head toward Court's village. In another scene, we see Marfel trapped in the center of a huge magic circle, in awful condition and unable to escape. Finally, the day comes, and Kano asks Danzo if they're dreaming. He replies that it's as real as any dream, or the real world. When they arrive at the giant atelier Court built, their first reaction is that it's insanely luxurious. They're also amazed that there was absolutely nothing here just 3 days ago. On the side, Sina notices a Peasno tree and thinks it'll bear delicious fruit next year, but quickly realizes it already has some. Meanwhile, Lys runs around joyfully and declares that starting today, this will be her love nest with Lord Court. As soon as she says that, Ulysses corrects her. It's an atelier. Just then, Court walks out the front door to greet them, apologizing for not preparing a proper welcome. Ulysses says they weren't ready either, then quickly asks to just ignore what she said, and if they can come in. Court says yes and starts showing them around. First, the entrance, which everyone finds very fancy. Then the 2 basement floors, which are huge. Next, Court takes them to the room where all the water for the mansion is generated. Ulysses asks what that device is, and he explains that he turned the sapphires she gave him into magical crystals and created a perpetual motion engine that generates water. He also made quartz magic crystals for lighting and used amethyst to produce magical energy, so there should be enough power for a whole year. While he's explaining all this, everyone else just stands there, stunned. It's all too much to process. Court then shows them their rooms, which they all really like. Lys is so happy she throws herself onto the bed. He mentions that he used griffin feathers for the comforters, but Lys just keeps enjoying his scent all over the bed. After that, Court shows them the Atelier Meister's room, but since he hasn't shown up yet, he nervously asks Ulysses when they'll get to meet him. She replies that he's super busy and apparently running late again. When asked which room is his, he says he's just handling chores, so he'll sleep in the rest area next to the kitchen. Everyone instantly rejects that idea in unison and convinces him to take that very room instead. It takes them 2 full hours. Switching topics, Ulysses asks Court if he can surround the mansion with an anti-curse barrier, but he says that request is a bit complicated, so she just uses some talismans Mimiko gave her, placing them around the mansion, especially at Lys's door. As soon as she senses something, Lys rushes out to greet Kurt, but Ulysses scolds her for having those kinds of thoughts. Lys suggests she's jealous, which just makes Ulysses even more flustered. The next day, Lys shows up in the kitchen with a very flashy outfit to hang out with Court. Yisha immediately scolds her, and Court says he also thought it was weird, but Lys told him that's just normal where she's from, so he's fine with it. Then she turns around to show she's wearing clothes. Sina enters, sniffing around and asking if that smell is fresh bread. Whatever's going on, bread takes priority over everything. Court goes back to cooking efficiently, and Ulysses can't help but think he's the perfect husband. She'd marry him on the spot if she could. Yeah, she was definitely jealous. After everyone eats and comments how amazing the food is, Ulysses notices Court's not there and wonders where he went. Lys tells her he left with a rag to clean up, because apparently someone scribbled all over the mansion. Ulysses assumes it's the talismans, and although Mimiko said not to remove them, she shows up just in time to see Court wiping off the last one with his cloth. He innocently asks what happened, and she says it's probably the work of Garabati, the scribble gang, who must have seen Lys and did all that to get her attention. She knows it's a dumb excuse, but now she's seriously worried again about whoever's trying to kill Lys. Here we see a conversation between Marphalis and the great Bishop Tristan. He informs her that she's been excommunicated, meaning she's now a former sister. That's because the Flaming Dragon Fang, the group she belongs to, has acted tyrannically and dishonorably too many times. On top of that, their leader has an arrest warrant. She explains she wasn't the one who committed those acts, and while it's true she fired lightning in a restaurant in the capital, it was as punishment for serving food worse than pig slop. Before she can go on, Tristan tells her to be quiet and makes it clear that her bad reputation also drags down the name of the Church of Palan. Marphalis is a little offended by this, since she believes that by hanging out with those crude adventurers and performing miracles, she's done more than anyone to improve the church's reputation. Despite everything, Tristan acknowledges her magical talents, which is why he tells her that if she completes a very simple task, he'll forgive her trivial sins and even name her a priestess. She's pretty shocked to hear that last part. Then Tristan shows her a wine from the Gurumaku Empire, enemies of the Duchy of Poland. Even though they're the enemy, he admits it tastes amazing and invites her to have a drink. These good news make Marphalis feel like she was right all along, so she drinks without hesitation and asks him to please make her one, using the exact words Court used. Tristan smiles wide and lets her know the mission is to help him kill the third princess of the kingdom. Yep, he's talking about Lys. Marphalis is in total shock when she hears this, but before she can even process it, a curse activates in her body, and she collapses to the ground. Tristan explains that there was one little detail he forgot to mention. The wine had poison that triggers a curse. As a result, her body won't be able to ingest anything but water, and within a month, she'll likely die from starvation. Because of that, she has to complete this mission. If she succeeds, he'll lift the curse and make her a priestess. Marphalis says that if it's for him, she'd gladly give up her life, and he praises her for saying that. Back to the present, we see Marfellus collapsed in the center of a magic circle. Beside her is another being, one she recognizes as a demon lord. Back with the group, Elisha notices Lys hasn't shown any signs of being cursed ever since Cord removed the talismans. She wonders if maybe the enemy hasn't found her yet, or if something else is preventing them from acting. She even considers if maybe Cord's cooking neutralized the curses somehow, but dismisses that idea as ridiculous. Either way, she knows Mimiko and the others already arrived in the city and have set up their network, so if the enemy makes a move, they'll know immediately. Lys tells Cord that the cake has a different texture than usual, and he explains he tried using rice flour today. She thanks him for the food and says that if someone curses her again, she hopes he'll cook for her again. Cord's happy she liked the food and tells her she doesn't have to worry about curses anymore. This confuses them a bit, so Elisha asks why he's so sure, since he just said earlier it'd be hard to set up an anti-curse barrier. Cord confirms again that he can't make curse barriers, and then gives his full explanation. At that exact moment, an enemy mage gets ready with a church member, declaring they'll curse the third princess and kill her no matter what. But when he casts the spell, his whole body suddenly starts glowing. Something goes wrong. Meanwhile, Ophelia detects the attack thanks to their detection network. Back to Cord, he explains that the mansion itself functions as a barrier that reflects curses, which is why he can't create another barrier inside it. On top of that, he tweaked the barrier a bit, so instead of the curse bouncing back, it just causes the caster to glow. That way, nobody would accidentally get cursed if they weren't actually hostile. Elisha doesn't really get the logic behind that, but decides she should tell Mimiko and Ophelia, so she asks permission to step out for a moment. Cord suggests she go shopping in the city, pointing out that she hasn't gone out even once since she came to the atelier. He's about to list things they could do together, but stops when he notices she's not in the mood. She apologizes and turns him down. Near the city walls, a thick fog starts forming, and watching from there are General Allright and Generic. Allright says he's got a bad feeling about this, while Generic reminds him that the wall repairs are done, and that he personally oversaw them. Allright explains that he didn't have a choice. Given the importance of the city, there was a risk a foreign spy could sneak in. Later, Phantom's crew finds the body of the mage who cast the curse. They tell the girls he was already dead when they got there. Mimiko and the others assume the curse must have failed, and fearing that the glowing body would give them away, his allies probably killed him. Ophelia figures that since even a corpse is still glowing, the curse rebound must have been super powerful, and that if Cord helped them directly, they could finish this whole thing in a day. Elisha asks her not to keep insisting. She doesn't want him dragged into anything dangerous again. Mimiko says she'll keep investigating and asks them to tell Lys not to leave the atelier, and that she'll send phantom agents to the workshop. Just then they hear a sound. It's the alarm bells. They notify Algid that monsters are attacking. When they light up the area, they realize it's a huge group of skeletons. The info reaches Mimiko right away, and Elisha wonders if they're after Lys. But before she can rush to the atelier, she stops, startled by a phantom girl, who suddenly appears to share more intel with Mimiko. She says the skeletons are being absorbed by the western wall. Elisha remembers that Kershaw mentioned Cord was the one who repaired the north and west walls. Allright is stunned by what's happening, and Generic asks what kind of wall that is. He admits he doesn't know, but the first thing that comes to mind is that it must be the work of that kid who repaired them. Back with Marfellus, the demon tells her not to die just yet. The first wave failed, and now he plans to summon the second and third using her magical energy. She's forced to be used this way, and in that awful moment, she wonders how a bishop of the church could have made a deal with a high-ranking demon and gotten it to obey him just to kill a princess. The demon explains that back in the day, people used to summon demons in the ruins of Pita, which makes it the perfect place for this. He knows she doesn't have as much mana as Tristan said, but if he uses her soul as food, it'll make up for what's missing. Marfellus now clearly sees this was never a test. It was a trap set by the church. And, I mean, yeah, kinda obvious, right? Later, Cord asks Elisha how things are going in the city. She says the walls are surrounded by monsters from all directions, and although they've tried calling for backup, flying monsters are blocking the way. She's also worried about the members of Sakura, since they went out to hunt trolls. Elisha then thinks back to Phantom's info, which says the monsters are coming from the Pita ruins to the west. The knights try to come up with a plan, but with so many enemies, they can't take action. After that, they mention what happened with the skeletons, and Kors tells them that in his village, it's normal for those creatures to be purified the moment they touch the walls. Yisha isn't surprised, already knowing he repaired the wall, but she realizes that if the next attack hits a wall without that protection, they won't stand a chance. That's when she gets an idea, and she tells both of them she has to go, and no matter what, they must not leave the atelier. They ask where she's going, and she replies she's heading out to clean up some ruins to the west. Hearing this, Cord tries to ask if he can go with her, but Eulisha refuses since the city is surrounded by monsters. Cord agrees with that, accepting that he's not made for the battlefield. But as he gets a bit down about it, Eulisha leans in and whispers to him not to forget about Garabatin, and that's exactly why he can't leave Lee alone. That reminder cheers Cord up, and Lady Alice says she'll stay there with him too, which also makes her super happy. Now Eulisha goes to her room to grab a box full of special items because her plan involves them. A bit later, Alra finishes discussing what needs to be done, aiming to take advantage of daylight since the skeletons are weaker. Before heading out, Eulisha shows up with Mimiko and Ophelia to greet him, and he recognizes her right away. They go way back. Julia introduces the people by her side and also lets him know that the third princess, Liselot, is in the city. Alray gets really concerned about that and suggests sending knights to protect her, but Mimiko says it's not necessary. Their intel unit is already on it. Back to the main point, Eulicia tells Alright that she has a plan. She wants them to act as bait while she heads to the western ruins and destroys the source of the monsters. But he thinks that even for her, it's way too dangerous. That's when Phalia explains they've got a secret weapon that's super special. Alright isn't impressed when he sees it's just a magic crystal, but Phalia guarantees its quality. After hearing that, Alrid agrees to go through with the plan, but only if he gets to go with Eulicia to the ruins. She says it'd be great to have him along, but she's hesitant since he's the general. Alraid then says that Lieutenant General Generic will lead the group that distracts the monsters, while he and Eulicia will go destroy the enemy base. Generi thinks it's too dangerous, but the king makes it clear that being the decoy is a high-risk, important mission, and there's no one more suited for it than him. After that, he asks Mimiko and Ophelia to help out, and they gladly agree to defend the city. With everything in place, Alray and Generic raise a glass of water for motivation before heading out. Meanwhile, Cord is no longer feeling as happy about having to stay back at the atelier. He remembers how an old man from his village used to say that if he hits steel with all he's got, he can understand himself better. He knows Danzo's katana is crazy sharp, and he wonders if he can create a smaller version of it. Thinking about that, he keeps himself busy in the forge, starting to craft a new weapon. As he works, he questions whether he's actually good for anything. He keeps getting fired from jobs and can't help his teammates in battle. When it's finally time to head out, Eulicia tells the others that when she throws the magic crystal, they need to shut their eyes tight. Right after, she tosses it at one of the skeletons near the entrance, triggering a massive burst of light. Once it ends, they see there are no monsters left in front of them, something that totally shocks Alraid. Mimiko realizes it was a light magic crystal, strong enough to purify demons and the undead in seconds. Cophelia adds that she never imagined it'd be that powerful. With the path cleared, Eulicia and Alraid head straight for the ruins to carry out the core part of the plan. At that point, Cord is done creating his weapon, but it didn't turn out right. His doubts messed with his work. He remembers someone once told him his blacksmithing skills were level B, but with this result, did he actually make something at level C or D? Right then, Liz shows up to say something about dinner, but gets distracted by the sword he's holding and asks him about it. Cord explains he just made it, but while thinking too much, he accidentally infused it with magical energy. She asks if she can look at it closely, and when he hands it over, he explains that if you swing it over your head while it's unsheathed, the magic activates, so she has to be careful. Liz says it's really beautiful, and Cord tells her that if she wants it, she can have it. She thanks him super excitedly, but Cord senses she's forcing a smile and wonders if he should keep pretending he doesn't notice what she's feeling. Looking at her again, he decides no, so he asks her if he can talk to her about something. As soon as Liz says yes, Cord asks if there's someone who's trying to kill her. That question completely changes her expression, and she admits the truth since she has no choice. It's something Cord had already suspected after noticing her fear. Liz tells him how bad she feels about all of it, thinking it's her fault he and Yisha are caught up in this. Cord immediately tells her she's not a burden to them at all, but Liz points out that right now, everyone's risking their lives heading to the western ruins, where the person trying to kill her is probably hiding. Cord remembers how Eulicia said she was going to clean them up, and that triggers a memory of when Gold Nova forcefully left scribbles all over some ruins to mark his territory. That helps him figure out that the ruins are the perfect place for people who love scribbling, and he realizes that the one targeting Liz is Garabatin, the scribble vandal. That makes him feel awful, and he tells Liz he can't protect her, even though she means so much to him. That makes her really happy, but then he adds that the others mean a lot to him too, which instantly brings her mood down. Since both Lee and Cord agree they need to finish off the enemy, he suggests they go together and clean up the western ruins. Meanwhile, Eulicia feels a tingle. While surrounded by monsters with Alra, something's about to happen. And that's it. If you enjoyed it, hit that subscribe button to support the channel. And finally, shoutouts.